Hey everybody, it's Mike Sherwood and welcome to my YouTube channel, Don't Waste Your Life, where we remind you to be present, to be happy, and to be thankful. If you're new to the channel, I'd ask that you subscribe below. And if you haven't checked out our most recent video, I would recommend checking that out above. If you're new here and you did not check out the last video, I'd recommend going there first before checking this video out. Because if you do this video first, you will feel a little bit lost because this is more about the application of the previous video, which was titled How to Have an Effective 2022. There's a notes section below where I will also reference Substack, which is where the text that we will be going through in this video will be from. So part one of the video will just kind of go through some basic housekeeping stuff. And the second part of the video will actually be applying and walking through as I applied the methodology that I talked about in the previous video. So I would ask that you subscribe to Substack. I'm planning on adding stuff in the future like book recommendations as well. So I want to talk about the tips actually applying this framework. So number one is to not try to do so much. Make it small enough, make it achievable. Don't make it just overwhelming. I would say simplicity is the key. The second thing I would say to focus on is remember that not everything is just going to be a check mark and saying this is done. Some of the stuff that's on your list, you will do it once and that'll be it. Other type of work will be iterations where you will continue to do that and refine the process. You will see examples of this in the area that I'm going to show next. So you may be asking, what is the purpose of this video? So number one is I'm actually building accountability in by sharing this video. So you guys will see some of the stuff that I'm actually trying to work on and I'm trying to get better at. So you can actually see that in my Substack. You can comment on that, and that I really want to be able to show you that what I'm recommending to others, I'm actually doing. So that's the second thing, is that I'm not just trying to pitch this to you and say, hey, you got to do this, and I'm not living it. I'm showing you that I'm actually living it as well. And I also think, thirdly, that just having a real example will give you ideas on what you're trying to do. So we're going to go over to the actual Substack and talk through this process live. So I'm hoping that I will be able to answer all your questions in the comment section down below. I'll see you soon, guys. Thanks. Hey guys, this is where I'm going to go through the actual application of my previous video that I recorded on how to have an effective 2022. I basically gave an overview, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually apply that in a real setting. So first off, before we go forward, I recommend that you go and check out the link on my Substack. I will make sure to link the Substack article that I'm going through in the YouTube video below. So where you're going to want to focus your effort is on Darren Hardy's Wheel of Life, which can be found on page 7 to 10 in the article that I'm going to send. You will actually see the link to that website. So I actually filled out mine back in October of 2021, but unfortunately at that time I didn't actually create any next action steps. I just kind of left it as it was. So I think the most important thing when you're doing the Wheel of Life is to be honest, not to cheat, not to, kind of like make it sound like you're better than you are. Because, in the end, the only person you're really going to be cheating is yourself. So, we all have work to do. And one of the most important things to do is to live by example. And so one of my favorite quotes from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, he said that to waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, but that you should be one. So what that just means to me is that if you're complaining about why somebody's doing something or anything like that, and you're like, hey, life isn't fair, this isn't right. So instead of, complaining about what's happening, just focus on what you can control. And that's really ultimately what you can do and what, how you can approach everything going forward. So that's just something as I was doing this, I always kept that kind of stuff in mind. So I'm going to scroll down and you'll be able to see my scores. So this is the Wheel of Life that I filled out. And you can see that for the most part, it's pretty balanced. Where I feel like I need to focus is on the business side and work. So when it says business, it also means work, whatever you have to do for a vocation to make money for your family. The other one was lifestyle, and I'll get into more of that later. And then spiritual. On the strength sides, where I did well was on the physical, the financial, and mental areas. So what I actually recommend you do is to look at 2 or 3 areas in each of those. So first off, I would say focus on areas of strength and figure out what are 2 or 3 areas that you want to continue to carry momentum in the future. And then focus on 2 to 3 other areas of improvement. Those are areas where maybe you had a lower score and you want to be able to focus on bringing those scores up. And the reason why I think both these areas are very important is area of strength, you're focusing on continuing momentum. You're carrying that forward. Again, it's almost like the rocket ship we talked about. Like once you've kind of achieved liftoff, you want to be able to continue to carry that momentum forward. Versus the area of improvement, you may have some good things going, but it's almost like a start-stop motion, and you need a little bit more help to kind of move you forward. So for areas of strength, I as I mentioned, I was financial, physical, and mental. And so just focusing on like what the kind of scoring was or what the items are in each category that I kind of focused on was for financial, is it's focused around being financially responsible, having a detailed budget, having a financial advisor or retirement plan in place, saving 10% of your monthly income, your credit card or debt free, 6 months of reserve living expenses, an updated will, insurance, or other legacy information for your family in case of contingency, something happens to you. You should have those kinds of stuff in place. Other items are living below your means and you are compensated what you're worth. I think it's very important is you need to know what you're worth in the open market and you are fairly compensated for that. On the physical side, it's focused around training of strength, cardio, yoga, stretching, having good sleep, limiting fast food, limiting coffee daily, drinking water, being consistent about meals and good quality food, limit TV to less than an hour a day. On the mental side, it's focused around having a growth mindset to learn new skills. You're continuing to evolve and educate yourself. You're connecting yourself with mentors to push you for further growth. You focus on people and talk that is positive. You don't engage in gossip. You're trying to avoid gossip. You're being grateful and you know your major goals on a daily basis, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve. You know your core values and you say no to things that are not in your core values or things that you truly want to do. So one of the quotes I enjoyed was Steve Jobs is that and it's kind of timely considering everything that happened with him. And, he had tons of money, but, cancer killed him. And he's just like anybody else. He's mortal and we all have a body and that body is not eventually going to be here. So Steve Jobs said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And I agree with this because even with your schedule, you scheduling different things, I always say that if you don't schedule the things that are important to you, other people will do that for you. So I think it's very important. So those areas, I feel like I have some strength. I want to find ways to carry momentum, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So areas of improvement, I feel like I need to focus on my spiritual life for sure. So that's focused around being a spiritual person. That can kind of vary person to person. Some people believe in God. Some people believe in other beliefs. You should have something that has a groundness, including having meditation, mindfulness, sharing and teaching of these practices that you follow on a daily basis, and you have your connection to God or whatever you believe in. You need to have something like that to have balance. For the business side, it's focused around organizing your day-to-day, the day before. So you're basically at the end of the day, as you close out your day, you're preparing for your next day. Your goals are written down, they're displayed, and they're regularly reviewed. You should love what you're doing for work, and that should honestly result in having a positive difference in your life and in other people's lives. You should focus on improving your strengths and working around your weaknesses. I am home with my family almost on time every day. My current business or job provides me financially today and has potential to meet my goals, 10 years from now. So on the business side, I feel like there's definitely some areas for me to improve, and we'll go through those. Lifestyle is focused around having hobbies outside work, culture, having diverse experiences. It's stuff outside of family and just other things. You need to have some outlet. And that may include vacationing with your family or your friends, being present in the moment, and cutting off communication with work on like a longer trip. So those areas, I definitely have some areas, some stuff I need to improve upon to kind of build momentum in the future. So I'll go through that when I start to apply the framework, which, I'm going to go through here below, is on the financial side. Again, this is one of those areas of strength, because my wife and I both work and we make a decent income. We have no debt besides our personal residence and the one rental property we have. We have a financial plan to pay for retirement and college for our kids, regardless of how many kids we have a plan for that. I have one main area of focus with some sub areas. So the main area I need to focus and plan around and put action and build habits around is simplified transition for family if something should happen to me, and centralize my will, my partnership information, all my accounts, passwords, and anything that only I know about, some way that needs to be conveyed in a way to my family if something should happen to me. So the sub areas where I really want to focus on, I'm going to hold myself accountable over this year, is getting updated agreements for all the companies that I own. Make sure insurance and other contingencies are in place to cover the businesses. So that has to do with, limiting and mitigating risk, or it has to do with if something happened to me. We'll also continue to check in with Brad on our plan and keep my network information up to date as needed. I feel like one of the things that's really important is when you have a plan, you need to keep it up to date and you need to keep feeding it the information to make sure you're tracking to that plan. So as I'm kind of building out in this stuff, a lot of this is going to be more just scheduling these tasks and getting it done, and then just checking in with Brad on some cadence of, a quarterly basis, for example. So these ones are going to be pretty straightforward. And honestly, it's just a matter of scheduling them and getting them done and chipping away at it. I honestly think the hardest thing will be getting all the updated agreements and getting all that stuff signed. That's going to take a bit of work to get that done. On the mental side, continue to learn new stuff on a weekly basis on Audible or other means, but be more intentional about what is consumed. As sometimes I consume, but I do not remember the material that was consumed. So focusing on how to put it in a long-term memory or a way to recover or use that information. The other thing is the content may not be top quality, so more research should be done before content selection process. So I think I told some of you that years ago I read like 100 books. I read a lot of books, and I continue to read a lot of books. But I think in order to move forward, I need to be more selective on what I consume, because I just don't have as much time to consume material as I used to. So I think it's very important. So where I feel like I need to focus here is building a plan and putting some habits in place and continuing some habits. So the first thing is I need to develop a framework to get information out of podcasts and audiobooks and make it frictionless. And I need to research this and refine this process. So this is something that's going to be ongoing. It's going to be an iterative process, and it's never probably truly going to be done because I'm always going to be developing it. But this will, kind of go into the second brain process, which, is the next bullet point, is organizing this source second brain, which I feel is reference material with a more better systematic approach to build and store information like quotes, book summaries, my core values, recipes, my thoughts, just different things and different information should be stored in a single area. So one habit I want to continue is to listen to podcasts and Audible. I'm not going to necessarily put like a specific number on there just because like it fluctuates. But I tend, since this habit has been long implemented, it's not like I have to keep pushing it. It just kind of almost happens. It's one of those habits on autopilot that when I have time, I like to listen to books. And I think where I need to focus more is on like intentionally capturing information uh, for for um, for reference material. I think, and organizing that material. I think that's where this could be taken to the next level, which I mentioned above. One habit I want to implement is turning negative to positive. I tend to be positive, but I feel like sometimes I can be pessimistic or realist. And I think that's not necessarily a helpful thing because it's not really, there's not much I can do about it. And so I think just turning my perspective around can make better outcomes. And so, one of the things I really like about Epictetus is he says men are not disturbed by things, but by the view which they take of them. So it's all about your perception and your particular viewpoint on that particular thing that's happened, whether it's truly good or bad, negative or positive. Because actually nothing is actually negative or positive. It's all your viewpoint that makes it negative or positive. So I think keeping that in mind is very helpful. On the physical side, I feel I'm pretty comfortable with the shape I'm in. So really here, the goal is to maintain and improve my performance and flexibility. Flexibility as you get older is really important. And, just continue to improve my performance or stability performance is important. So I'd say for me, the areas I'm going to focus on is continue habit of playing badminton 2-3 times a week, continue habit of cross training twice a week, one session of flexibility, one session of core and leg work, just to kind of keep my strength where it is and just to kind of like mix it up a little bit. I think the other area where I could improve is cleaning up my diet to consume better quality foods, to just be more mindful about what I consume, because I actually think that diet is more important than exercise. I think diet and what you put in your body, the source, the fuel, is much more important than working out, which most Americans get wrong, in my opinion, is that they think, well, they can just outwork whatever they're putting in their body, which just simply is not true. So some other ways I can also improve that is by working with my wife to plan weekly meals so we can eat healthier at home. What I've noticed is that my wife and I feel much better when we actually cook at home. And it's just better food. It's just better meals. And so we enjoy those. It's nice to be able to eat out, but also the food tends to have some other stuff in it that just isn't as healthy. So the next two areas, or three areas rather, are the areas I really need to improve upon. So the way I think about the areas of improvement versus the areas of strength is that the areas of strength should become so strong that they just are kind of there and those habits are solidified and things are moving forward. And the areas of improvement that I'm trying to focus on, those should eventually become areas of strength, or at least that they should be steady state and stable. So, and then the next time when I do this, I'll have other areas that I need to improve upon, and those will kind of move into those areas. So that's kind of the way I think about this, is that the areas of strength will continue to go forward. The areas of improvement will become areas of strength, and then areas of improvement, there'll be other areas that I can improve upon. I think the one thing that I would say is consistent about this is that there is no exact work-life balance or perfect balance. It's really the balance that you are looking to achieve, and that's different for every person. So you need to figure out what that is for you. Everybody's different, and it can change with different seasons of your life, which is a good segue for this. So spiritual life. So spiritual and meditation time is important to help me feel centered and balanced. It is important to find time to make this a priority weekly. So taking time to be present with God and with myself a couple of times a week. Typically, I'm going to try to do this on badminton nights because usually I get a little bit of time just to myself. This can be good reflection time for me with God, and to be able to, read my Bible or different stuff like that, or just kind of think about scripture, I think that is probably where I'm going to focus there. The other thing is I do have a daily habit I'd like to implement, which is to read one Bible verse a day so I can apply the word more to my life and add helpful scriptures to that second brain source material that I described before. So these are creating a couple of habits here that should help me become closer to God and feel more centered. Maybe in the future, I can focus on maybe some meditation, but I think, just these two will make me feel much more balanced and more in tune with what God has planned for my life. So the next area will be on business, which will be focused on maximization of my strengths, task satisfaction, hiring or delegating to others for my weakness. Those are kind of the things I'm thinking about this year and keeping in mind. So one thing I'm doing is I actually keep a daily work log, a top 3 items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my 3 daily goals to review as a habit. I've started doing this, but I need to continue doing this. But I also need to do this for my work, a little bit for my personal life, and then my rental company as well. So even if I have 3 goals for each, I know this may sound like a lot, but like some of them may not be the daily goal for that day. It might kind of carry over because I may not always be working on my rental business, for example, on a daily basis. So some of those may carry over, but I should know what those next 3 goals for those given areas are. So the other area I'd like to focus on is build systems and framework to better understand the snapshot performance of the business and work. So one thing I think I'm really good at and I understand is like how to make the business work and how to get things done. I think one area where I need to improve upon is having an overview snapshot of where we're at and then kind of guiding other people to fill in the pieces that I used to do to build all that stuff. Because that way I can quickly look at the data and I know, are we going the right direction or not the right direction? So I think being able to have that ability and that framework is very important. The next thing I'd like to focus on is having different projects outside my normal business responsibilities that'll keep me growing, especially when I tend to, kind of cap out in a role or I have a season at work or other areas where I am just not growing as much. So one of the things I notice is having other avenues of hobbies or other ideas to grow allows me to continue to be engaged. So me being a YouTuber, as I'm kind of doing this, one other thing I've looked at is, working with HR team to understand performance management and helping them test out stuff and just talking about different ideas on how to develop culture and develop effective teams in a company. That's not just my own, but like other places. I'm really enjoying that. So I think devoting some of my time to that was where I'd like to focus some of my energy this year. And so I'm sure there's going to be sub goals like that inside of here, but like those are kind of the major goals in that area. So lifestyle. So in my previous role, I think work-life balance was really a huge issue. And it took a lot of feedback from many people to realize that it's truly a problem. And I think in some cases, maybe I just was in denial. Maybe I knew it truly was an issue and I just couldn't do anything about it, or I just didn't think I could do anything about it. So I'm thankful now that I have actually done something about it and now changed jobs and, focusing on establishing boundaries. So I think where I need to focus here on that will be very helpful for me is be mindful of work-life balance. Like I need to keep that in mind at all times. And so setting daily finish times, setting expectations with the team on when stuff will be delivered, no checking emails in the evening, no responding to stuff. Having good, healthy boundaries is very important. So now that this is a new role, I can focus on that. So the next area I'd like to focus on is relationship building and managing. So following up and connecting back with people systematically. One thing I'm honestly not good at is sometimes responding to people via text. I look at it and I'll say, hey, I'll respond later. And it's not that I don't want to talk to somebody. It's like I'm thinking about something or I'm thinking about what I want to say to them. So now what I've actually done is like in my day, I've actually scheduled time to like review this stuff. So that way I have to follow up with people. I'm still bad at this. I need to get better at this. So this is an area where I can definitely improve a lot. Being present on a daily basis, which is part of one of our pillars, is with just being present. I got to continue to get better at that and just, hold myself accountable. And that will be something in my journal I probably will talk more about. Plan my time and energy better. I think what I've noticed about as I work is tend to be in the mornings, I tend to be more productive. Afternoons, I taper off. And so just understanding how my time can be best utilized to get work done or get whatever I want done. And that can just kind of fluctuate and change over time. So I think being mindful of that is really helpful. So those are, what I'm trying to focus on. And so again, the reason why I put this all out there is to hold myself accountable by putting something out there and sharing it with others. And number two, giving other people, courage and giving them an example that they can follow. And this is not perfect. This is just what I came up with. And I think the most important thing is just taking some kind of action. And so I'm planning to do another video probably a couple weeks from now that'll be focused on accountability and the review process, which is, part of the overall framework. And I didn't get to that here, but I think those are very important because having accountability, which is kind of actually what I'm doing here by sharing this information, is now you guys can see everything that's out there that I'm focused on, or some of the major stuff. And, indirectly, you guys are holding me accountable because, you're going to look back at this, or I'm going to look back at this and see, hey, I didn't do this. So accountability is very important. And we'll also talk about the review process on how to track how you're making progress, how to, plan that into your weekly schedule is very important. And when I go through these, I'm going to give real examples of some of the stuff I'm working through. So I think that'll be really helpful. And I think one thing that's super important is that if you fall off, how do you get back on the wagon and how do you keep making progress? I think if you fall off, it's almost like don't break the chain from, Seinfeld. The idea is you want to, if you miss one day or miss 2 days, just get back on the horse and keep going. And then, build momentum and consistency. And as you kind of move that forward, you don't want to stop because, you don't want to stop the momentum. So I think that'll be very important. So I hope you guys found this useful and love to, hear what you guys think.